Sattler Files.
Devrite Homes, when you're looking for attention to detail and a uniquely designed home to suit all your needs. At Devrite Homes, we only build a limited number of homes per year, so we can truly focus on what you want out of a prestige home builder. We've continually won awards for excellence, with a record number of wins last year and the proud winner of the Australian Townhouse Villa of the Year. While we love building homes to suit each client, we pride ourselves on designing homes that take into account the special safety needs of some of our clients. If you have a dream, we can make it come true. Talk to Jay Mangano and find out more about Devrite Homes at www.devrite.com.au.
This is the Sattler Files.
Welcome back to the Sattler Files, and joining me in the studio, as she does every week, is Jay Mangano from Devrite Homes of Distinction. Welcome along, Jay.
Hi, how are you today, Murray?
Good, thank you.
That's good.
Jay, we all sign contracts, don't we, with when we go to build a new home?
We do. There's lots of industry contracts out there.
Yep.
And most builders will use industry contracts. And if you go to designers, they have their own contracts, but they all basically say the same thing.
Yep, but they have some terms in them that a lot of people may not be familiar with, and of course one of them is prime costs.
Prime cost is an allowance that we put in to buy a particular item. So we've got a tap.
Yep.
You go and buy your tap. We've got $200 in there as a prime cost to buy that item. So it doesn't matter what item you buy as long as it comes in $200. If it comes in less than $200, then you get the difference back. If it comes in more, then you've got to pay more. So you've got to be very aware of what your costs are when you go out, what your prime costs are. So when you go out looking, and don't overspend, be very aware, because you will get a bill for the difference if it goes over. So you've just got to watch what you're doing. You can't go out and just go shopping and think, oh, well, and keep spending, because it will come back to bite you.
Okay, so just going back one step with in terms of prime costs. So the prime cost is calculated or established at the design phase. Is that where it's done?
It will be established from the contract. You know that you need X number of taps, so you'll just go, you need 10 taps at $200.
Okay.
So it's just a cost that we would guess that they would buy a tap, and they can buy one for. So we're talking about a tap, $200. They can buy one for that. They have to be able to buy it for that.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be the best on the market. It doesn't have to be the cheapest on the market. It's got to be a reasonable cost to cover it. So we can't put $10 in. If you can't buy a tap for $10, well,
no point in putting it in.
Yeah.
So that process of establishing a prime cost would also apply to things like tiles and I suppose electrical parts as well, and that sort of thing, light fittings perhaps?
Generally all the standard light fittings we supply, but we know the price of those. So any of the other ones, generally we don't supply them because there's just a wide variety out there that we could choose from. In most of our contracts we do install them, so if the client goes and buys them, they bring them back, and the day the electrician's there, we'll install them for them.
So when is the prime cost paid?
Well, it's in the contract, and as the builder buys those items, so you tell him what items you want him to buy. As he buys those items, he would do a variation for it to either adjust the price, either up or down, whatever. Whatever the consequences of it are.
All right. So what other things, like we've talked about taps, we've talked about tiles, what other things, I guess it's what the client wants to choose becomes something of a prime cost, is that right?
Yeah. Saniware, basins, toilets, all those things can be. Like some builders just go, this is a toilet you're going to have and that's a toilet you're going to have, and there's no questions asked. If you change that toilet and you say, right, I don't want that toilet, then if the toilet you choose is more than that toilet, then they've got a right to claim that extra money back as well. So it doesn't really matter if they do it as a make of a toilet or if they do it as a dollar value. If you want to change it, you're only going to get the dollar value for that toilet that they would have bought.
That's right. Yeah. And then if it's more expensive, then you get a bill for that.
But some builders won't let you change those items.
Oh, will they not?
No. If there's a lot of things go on within building, and if you do change things, a lot of time you've got to be very aware of what you're changing. Basins, if they sit on top, if your drawings are all done and they're underslung or inset sinks, and then the client goes and chooses ones that sit on top, then your cabinet work has to be adjusted. So a lot of builders go, no, it's just too much trouble.
Okay, yeah.
Toilets, you have to know where your water's coming in and things like that. So if the plumber's been there and plumbed it up for a toilet and then you go and choose a toilet, you go and choose a toilet, you're not going to think about when the water comes in.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, so if it's already done, then it causes problems. So it causes rework, and all those things cost money. So some builders just flat out refuse to change those things.
So, I go out and I choose my taps, and they're not $200, as is the prime cost. They've come in at $250, let's say. So when do I pay for that?
Once they're on site, you can get billed for them. So the problem with it is that banks won't pay. If you've got a contract, the banks will only pay on the whatever is in the contract. Okay. So if the builder gives you, which he is in his right to do, to the next bill he comes along and he goes, well, you owed me $68,000, and then we've done variations to change these things, so they're on site. So now you owe me $69,000. The bank will still only pay $68,000, so you have to come up with the extra $1,000.
Okay. That's pretty clear.
Usually that's what the bank will do. Yeah. But then,
they are banks, let's not forget.
That's it.
And we all know what banks are. Okay, well, that seems pretty fair, because if you change something, then it's up to you to
make sure you've got the
and
money.
You're responsible for the payment of any differences.
A lot of times to just leave it to the end. So most of ours we just leave till the end, the last bill, add them all up and add them on, and then the bank pays their bit and the client has to come up with their bit. So.
Okay, so there's another term that you've told me about, and that's provisional sums.
Provisional sums is another allowance we put in there for things that are not defined. So we have to use a real cost. So we can't say your earthworks is going to cost $1,000 when we know it's going to cost $100,000. It has to be within a ballpark of what it's going to be, but we don't know under the background someone's buried asbestos. So it's a provisional sum until it's all done and nothing unforeseen has turned up. So someone's buried a car body under there, you've still got to get rid of it. Your work's got to keep going. You can't stop because you've got a contract. So it's just given that will be added to the provisional sum of the earthworks.
Okay, so earthworks is one. What other things attract a provisional sum in a contract?
We do a lot with kitchens because we're building one-offs. A lot of times we don't have, so we have a provisional sum for kitchens because it's not defined. A lot of times our clients change things as we go. So
I'll bet that's such a delight for you when
it is. Yes,
you do that. Makes it hard, doesn't it?
Yeah. So we do a provisional sum for cabinet work and stone tops and things like that because it's not defined. But we use a real cost. So we've got a general idea of where we think their kitchens will come in at. Stone, we've got a general idea where we think it's going to come in. So we use real costs, but people start spending. They start going and looking, and they spend more. Well, then obviously that's going to go on to the provisional sum.
Of course. But, of course, I suppose the difference with the provisional sums is that when you're doing something like, you know how many bricks you're going to use in a wall, for example, you know how much it costs per 1,000 or per 100 or per brick or whatever, however it's decided, you know what that's going to be. So that forms part of it. So if there is a variation there, then that's either a win or a lose for the builder, isn't it?
Yeah, yes. If we get it wrong, we wear it. That's just how it is.
That's right.
We can't go back and say, well, we miscalculated the bricks and it's now cost us $2,000 more. We can't do that. That's just our problem.
But I mean that's just one of those things that happens in business, isn't it?
You win some, you lose some.
That's right.
But then if someone says, I want another wall, obviously then they would have to...
Totally different story.
Then you would do a variation for that as well.
Okay, let's just talk about variations for a minute, because they kind of all tie in a little bit, don't they, with things like prime costs, because you only allow a certain amount for certain things, but once again, if there's a variation to it, you get to pay more. So in a variation, that's a rather more serious thing, isn't it? Because a variation can be as much as moving a wall or taking out a wall or something like that.
Yes. Yeah. We have to so if you moved a wall, you would have to then go back to engineer and make sure it's okay and all those things. So there's lots of things involved that you can't just say, well, I'll move it. But yes, we would have to do a variation to the contract. It's got to be signed by both parties. So we do the variation. We say it's going to cost you X to do that. A lot of builders will charge a variation fee, and they somewhere between $250 and $750 every variation.
Wow! Yeah. Because well, I mean, there is a lot of work, isn't there?
There is a lot of work, and if you're going to change the door swing of a house. There's no money in it for the builder as such. So he's got to try and – there's a lot of work involved for the builder. He's got to change plans. He's got to change orders and all those things. And there's always a chance that something will go wrong once something's changed. So he's got to pay staff to do that. So they need a sum to get to pay for the staff to do that.
Indeed, yes.
Otherwise, it would be coming off their bottom line, and
and no money is made.
Yeah,
and that's kind of serious.
It is.
And of course, I imagine that there would reach a point in the construction of a home where certain things can't be changed without enormous expense and so on. So you do reach a point where you have to say, no, I can't do that.
Yeah, there is, like water for the toilet. So once the plumber's been there and he's plumbed it all in, then for him to come back and change where the water comes into the toilet is going to be major work. He's got to come back and all those things. So it adds up, and you can't. It's not going to cost the same amount for him to do it in the first place.
No,
it's not going to cost the same amount. He's got to come back and he's got to dig out what he's done, and so it's
the undo price, and then there's the redo price.
Yeah.
So are there issues with approvals that you've gained to construct? Like you submit plans to council, for example, and they say, "Yep, we're happy with all of that." Are there any things that at what point do you have to go back to the council and say the client has said they want to do this, that, and the other thing? Are there times when you have to do that?
When we get planning approval, we get approval for the footprint of the house and where the windows are and those sorts of things. So if you change any of those sorts of things, then you'd have to go back to Shire. You can't change any of those things once you've got planning approval. Heights and things like that all have to go back. If it's a building issue, then that is a different process. So we've had one now that we got to site and there was a retaining wall that was failing on the next door neighbour's property. So we've had to change our retaining to support somebody else's retaining wall. So we have to, halfway through a job and we go, this isn't going to work, so we've got to get the engineer out. He's got to say, well, no, this will have to be changed to this. So when we've finished, that will have to go back to Shire to say, well, this retaining is not like this, it's now like this, because that's in a case where we can't stop because we're halfway through doing something, we can't stop. And it's got to be what it's got to be. The Shire can't say no because it won't work.
Yeah.
But if we hadn't done it and we just decided we were going to change it for whatever reason, then we would have to go back to Shire first and say, well, we're going to change this because.
But the Shire really aren't interested in alterations on the internal walls of the house other than perhaps positions of windows and doors?
No, not
really.
Yeah, not really. But you're not supposed to change your plans.
No.
But they how the house looks a lot of times is you can't change. So if you're building in Mount Lawley, it's got to look like it's a Federation house. Those sorts of things you can't change.
Yeah, is that right? That's extraordinary. And do they sometimes, are there regulations governing things like what the roof is going to be?
Oh yes, some councils, even colour, what colour it's going to be.
Goodness.
So some councils don't like Zincalume, some councils love Zincalume. It depends where you're building as to what you're going to build. So these are all things you should be aware of when you go out looking for your block, because if you really don't like a red brick house, then you wouldn't buy in Mount Lawley because the chances are you're going to have a red brick house. So, so you've got to be very aware of what you're buying and where you're buying. So, because if they decide you can't do it, you can't do it, and it just doesn't work.
There's an absolute maze, isn't there, of regulations? I mean, and particularly as you suggested that it's on a council by council basis.
I just want to know who sits there and says, that's a good colour, that's a bad colour, that's a good colour, that's a bad colour.
It's quite a value judgment, isn't it, really? They just sit there doing it.
Yeah, I think, someone actually sat there and thought, no, that's not a good colour.
Amazing stuff.
Yeah.
Has it always been like that, or is this something that's been a little more recent?
It gets worse all the time. So as shires go, they just keep changing the rules and make themselves more important. So more rules, so we have more jobs and all those things. So it gets worse. The government is trying to stop it But
it's like a bit of a cancer, isn't it? Once it gets into the system, it
we
just
never
gets
used
worse.
to go to planning. We never used to go to planning approval for anything that wasn't a development. It was, if it was a single house, you never ever went to planning approval. You just put it in, and they would look at it and go, yeah. But now, as time went by, they just everything until the government stepped in a few months ago, everything had to go to planning approval.
Is that right?
Yeah, everything. But, that's $2,000 for planning approval. So it's another process that's got to go through, and it's time.
And it's cost too, Jay, isn't it? It's and the cost is not borne by the builder. It's not borne by anybody other than that who is the person who is paying the bill, which is the homeowner.
Yeah, yeah.
So, when you talk about housing affordability and all of those sorts of things, there is so much that is attributed to government regulation and rules and compliance and all of that sort of stuff.
47% they say of a house is government.
Really? 47%? That's outrageous.
Yeah.
And you as the builder have to know all of these things, don't you? You have to be aware.
We have to be aware, yeah,
of what you can and can't do, and what you do and don't have to submit to for approval.
Yeah, we have to be very aware. And we get time frames where we've got to do things by. So if if we finish a house within 7 days, we've got to let the Shire know that we've finished the house. We fill in a BA7 form. And if we don't do that, we get fined $10,000.
Oh my God, do you?
And
really?
they love telling you about that.
do they?
And you go, okay,
Yeah.
so what's the consequences if I give it to you in 14 days?
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
there's got to be a relative. It's got to be relative, you know. What's the consequences?
We understand the need to do it, but, I mean, goodness me, that sounds a bit harsh.
Especially when they don't stick to their statutory times.
No.
And they just go, oh, he's gone on holidays. Well, I didn't quite make that statutory time. And you go, so?
Meanwhile, you're sitting around waiting for something and you can't get on and make money.
Yeah. And, we get, oh, he's gone on holidays. And you go, so what happens if he dies while he's on holidays? We're really up the creek here.
Indeed. Oh, look, you should be making the path smoother for these sorts of things, particularly when you've got such a housing affordability issue. Those sorts of regulations and compliance requirements and so on should be made a lot easier to do and a lot less expensive.
Yeah. Well, planning approval, just getting rid of planning approvals would save people heaps. The problem with planning approval is it's very iffy. So the rules are very... They have so many rules that you can interpret things different ways, and then you've got an argument, and it goes on and on.
And meanwhile, the poor old homeowner and the builder are sitting back there waiting and twiddling their thumbs until all this gets done.
Well, so if we draw by the R codes now, we shouldn't have to go for planning approval on a single residential block. But then you don't know, because they could interpret something different to how you interpret it, and then it becomes an argument. And
then all of a sudden lawyers get involved and they're the ones that get rich.
Yeah.
You submit anyway just because you want to be absolutely clear in your own mind that what you are doing is the right thing and won't be misinterpreted.
A lot of times, you do. You just go to planning approval just for the sake of it, so that you can't get knocked back later on. Because if you go to planning approval, you do your working drawings and you go to build, that's fine. If you don't go to planning approval, you do working drawings and you lodge for a building licence, and then they go, no, you've got to go to planning approval. And that's an 8-week process. You're going to sit there for 8 weeks waiting for them to decide whether it's got planning approval or not.
Goodness
so
me.
You get an 8-week delay when you're ready to go, and most people can't afford that.
I wouldn't have thought so. Goodness me.
So a lot of times you do lodge for planning approval just because.
And so planning approval is something that is done, the approval is given by the relative council?
Yeah.
Relevant, sorry.
Relevant council, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so.
And goodness me.
But then you go in and you ask them, so does this need to go to planning approval? And you think, hang on, isn't this a conflict of interest? You're the one that says whether it needs to go to planning approval or not, and you're the one that's going to collect the money, so that's a conflict of interest.
It certainly is, because they're always going to say, probably to be safe you should.
Yeah, because...
We get another $8,000 or whatever it is they get. That's extraordinary stuff.
Yeah, it is.
So in terms of planning approval, if you I mean, I know that Devrite don't do this, but in terms of building a standard house, if you like what do they call it? Project home.
Project.
Once they've got that approval for that particular design, do they still have to go each time to planning approval?
Yeah. But the planning approval would be for a block with that house on it. Yes, so you couldn't keep using the same plan.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's relative to that block. So then they would check the windows and the overlooking and all that on the next block. So the same house could go there dozens of times.
Goodness me.
Yeah.
That just seems an extraordinary waste of money, but it obviously keeps people in the council in jobs.
Yes, that's correct.
Well, therefore, that's a good enough reason to be doing it.
If we got rid of all the planning departments, do you think what's going to happen?
Yeah.
They put in rules that are like, if you do a development, you've got to bond your driveway because we don't like dirt driveways.
What does that mean, Jay? What does bonding a driveway mean?
It means you give them money and they hold it until your driveway is done.
Oh, okay.
But then you think all these single residential houses out there, they have no control over whether they put a driveway in or not. So how many of them have dirt driveways? You think so? You didn't have any bargaining power with them, and they actually all managed to put their driveways in because they're not going to build $1 million house and not put a driveway in.
No, that doesn't seem right, does it?
You know, it's unethical to do that because how many people are going to build a development and not put the driveway in?
Well, they're not going to do that, are they?
No,
they're just simply
it's
not.
It's just a loophole that they use to take money.
Look, it's extraordinary because those sorts of things, the delays and so on, must cost builders like yourself a lot of money.
Yeah, they do. Huge amounts of money. And, if something gets rejected, you've worked on it for 8 months and then they go, no, don't like it. Yeah. I mean, that's 8 months worth of work that you don't ever get paid for because you're not going to build the house.
Well, that sort of thing could send a builder broke, couldn't it?
Yeah, this one went broke yesterday, the day before.
I did actually hear about that, yes.
Well, we don't know that he's gone broke, but he's not paying anyone, and he's not building his houses, so one would assume that that's what's happened. But,
So those sorts of things can be an extraordinary burden on the builder that a client may not ever see.
No, never see.
So how do you protect yourself with that, Jay? How does you as a builder, how can you protect yourself?
You can't really. You've just got to go with your gut feel and think, is it fair and reasonable? And if it's fair and reasonable and there's no reason for it to be knocked back, then you would assume it's going to go through. But their fair and reasonable is not always
necessarily the same as a fair-minded person.
I've been lucky, got most of mine through. I've never had one but I've got one now that's I've got an issue with, might not get through. And this one, my client has probably spent $100,000 on it.
The client has spent that much money, goodness me.
And I've spent 18 months working on it, and they go, nah, we're going to widen the road. And you go, where does it say anywhere in any book that you're going to widen the road? Oh, we are.
Well, that must be worth thousands and thousands of dollars of your time that you're never going to get reimbursed for.
Never. And my client spent $50,000 moving a sewer line. That the government now has that sewer line, a new sewer line where they had an 80-year-old one before.
And now they've knocked him back.
Yeah.
Goodness me, that's scandalous, really.
Yeah, and their answer is go to SAT. You think that's more money, more time. What
SAT is?
State Administration Tribunal.
Right, okay.
But, you've got to have someone that knows the rules. You've got to, so you're employing someone else to go there for you. It's all time.
And money that you've spent, and it would, I suppose, reach a point where it'd be like throwing good money after bad.
Oh, yeah. That most clients, a lot of clients will just go, nah, I'm going to cut my losses and go. And
that's really sad, isn't it?
It is. And especially in this time now when the economy is not that good, you can't no one can afford to be stopping jobs and spending
all that money for no result whatsoever.
So those jobs stop. That's all the employment for those trades that aren't going to happen, and all these things. They have a flow-on effect. But those guys in the Shire, they'll still get paid every fortnight. So
that's right. And the poor schmucks of ratepayers, they get to pay for them to stay there.
Yeah. Yes. Wasn't that?
Doesn't sound right to me somewhere, Jay. It really doesn't.
I don't know what we can do about it, though.
Sometimes you just have to lay back and think of England, I think, because they do screw you over big time sometimes, don't they?
The part that really gets me is they lie and cheat, and there is no comeback.
No.
They can make up lies. They can pull out of the top shelf that they're going to widen a road. They'll never do it.
No.
But they stopped you in your tracks. And
that's right. That's really so unfair, isn't it?
So in 10 years' time you come back and say, well, how come you didn't widen that road? Oh, we'll change their mind.
Meanwhile, a job worth thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars has gone begging.
Yeah, probably worth 1.2 million, So.
Well, look, I think builders really do need some protection from that sort of thing, but I don't know how you're going to get it.
No, the government just tinkers around the edge. They don't want to upset people.
No.
And if they do, they make their fees more. So
that's right.
We'll fix it by increasing our fees.
That's right. That'll stop people complaining that way.
Yeah.
Oh, look, Jay, you go through an awful lot as a builder to get a product for a client, and it's quite revealing talking to you about these things.
We work for our clients, so we go to the Shire before we ever start drawing, so that we know we can get through what we're going to draw.
Right.
So we'd advise our clients long before we started drawing is what they should be drawing to get through.
Yes.
We'd never just draw without
the consultation. Yeah.
But sometimes you just hit brick walls.
Yeah.
And they go, well, no. So
not a good thing.
It isn't.
Particularly when, as you say, an economy is not sparkling by any stretch of imagination at the moment, and people they're not building homes the way they used to, are they?
No, they're not, and they're not spending the same kind of money either. So
one would think they would be trying to make every post a winner.
But they're still busy. You think, how are you still busy? If no one else is, how are you still busy?
Oh, well, there's all those coffee breaks to take.
And they're shopping online.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And their mobile phones.
That's right, and Pokemon.
I reckon if they just didn't tell everyone how busy they were when they rang up, they would have an extra 5 hours a day
Probably.
just doing work.
That's right.
Just forget the fact that you're really busy. Don't tell everyone.
No.
Just do some work instead.
Chance would be a fine thing.
Yeah.
Jay, thanks so much for joining us today and telling us a little bit about some of the hardships and difficulties that you as a builder have.
Yeah.
And let's hope that in the future the shires will see the error of their ways, and
not likely.
Perhaps not in our lifetime.
No.
Jay, thanks again for coming in, and we'll look forward to catching up with you again really soon.
Right. Thanks, Murray.
More on the Sattler File shortly.
This is the Sattler File.
Devrite Homes, when you're looking for attention to detail and a uniquely designed home to suit all your needs. At Devrite Homes, we only build a limited number of homes per year, so we can truly focus on what you want out of a prestige home builder. We've continually won awards for excellence, with a record number of wins last year and the proud winner of the Australian Townhouse Villa of the Year. While we love building homes to suit each client, we pride ourselves on designing homes that take into account the special safety needs of some of our clients. If you have a dream, we can make it come true. Talk to Jay Mangano and find out more about Devrite Homes at www.devrite.com.au.
This is the Sattler File.